System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd. I am Amin TMK alongside Amoja, Lil T, Sumler. Amoja, hello. Happy Tuesday.
Tuesday it is.
How are you doing today? How is your weekend? How are you enjoying the snowcrete in Washington, D.C.? Is it bad where you are?
It's crazy just watching the government give the fuck up, man. They came by with the snow plows. You know what I'm saying? They put in a good 2 days of effort. And after that, it's like, all right, well, we've done everything we possibly could do, except continue to take your motherfuckers that want to use the streets. So, fucking DC, man.
If you don't know, we're in Northeast America, so
it's snowpocalypse.
A lot of snow, and then sleet came, and then rain came, so it's like 4 feet of snow that's now covered in ice, and basically slip is zero friction left, and of course, Muriel Bowser, Michael Bloomberg's friend, and she stood behind Donald Trump, removed the Black Lives Matter street when Donald Trump wanted for her to do that. And, she basically said she's not going to run anymore. So I guess why does she care? They gave it a good shot. They gave it a good try for, like you said, 48 hours. And that's the state of America and the state of where our city is. Not to mention there's how many 150 National Guard that are still here, not to mention
at least people stop talking about it, but they take the metro.
They're still here.
They're all over
around. The metro.
They're around.
Any major touristy area or any major hub, there's going to be one of those National Guard. But anyway, let's talk about Russia. We haven't spoken on this maybe in a while, but I think it's time to revisit. And let's that. If you have not heard, Ukraine is saying people in multiple regions are losing power supply following Russian energy strikes. Zelensky says new Russia attacks target energy facilities in frontline border communities over past day. So we've heard about rolling brown in Kyiv. We've heard about the energy situation. There was talk of a energy ceasefire thing that happened. What can you tell us about these strikes? And B, what is happening in, with what happened? What's happening with the energy and what's happening with these strikes?
Man, it's like if you've been choking someone, right, with like 80% intensity, you don't want to kill them, or you're just choking them, and then they like, give me 3 seconds of air, and you give them 3 seconds. The moment you go back to, it's not like it's all over. It's not like, you're reset. And that's essentially the energy grid of Ukraine. They continue to act like it's some kind of a tie, and it's not. Like, the Ukrainians are being decimated. They're being devastated, you know what I'm saying, on the battlefield, as well as throughout the infrastructure of Ukraine. And so the Russians have continued to put pressure on their on their energy production. And now all it takes is just a couple of strikes and the whole power grid goes down, right? These are the kind of things that tell you it's not a tie. Right? It's not a battle between equals. It's not a stalemate. Someone is decisively losing in a place where when the sun drops, it might go to minus 20 Celsius. That's something to think about, right? Like, a responsible government at this point would cease hostilities and seek peace at whatever cost, right? Like, NATO is not worth this. Like, nothing should ever be worth, right, the loss of your people. That's not good governance. When you're sacrificing your people to die for an agenda, that's not good governance. Like, we don't have to really put names on any type of government style to say if your government is literally sacrificing its people for some intellectual ideal, that's bad, you know? And so there we are. And this says nothing of the hundreds of thousands of men that have been pressed into military service and forced to serve, though they had no real ties to the government or the military, right? This is just one more way where the vampire ball literally eats human beings to move its agendas forward. Yet we're consistently portrayed as Zelensky like some type of sage-like, stoic, this is what leadership looks like, when the reality is he's really just a corrupt crony, an entertainer, a failed comedian who was turned into a seemingly populist despot. But the reality is he doesn't have the people behind him. Like, he can't win another election. This is why there's a very surefire way to demonstrate that. He won't have one. You know what I'm saying? Look at Japan right now. Takaichi, even though the economy is in shambles, you know what I'm saying? It looks like the yen is about to devalue. They're selling off American, bonds. By the way, Japan is the world's biggest holder of American bonds, right? They're dumping these bonds. The economy is shit. But Takaichi is so popular, she's trying to have, snap elections. Like, no, let's let the people vote, right? Because the people are with her, right or wrong. Even though the economy is not doing well, and she's made some very obvious military blunders by trying to provoke China over Taiwan, she still has the heart of her people, for good or bad, right? Zelensky cannot make these kind of claims. He knows if there's any type of election right now, he will lose badly, and it's not even just a punishment for the war doing well, because the two people that are the most obvious to beat him are Zelensky, who is he was the military head of command, right? And also, everybody's favorite ex-boxer, Mr. Klitschko. These are people that were really pro the war. Like, Ukraine has turned sour on Zelensky, and that's just the truth.
Facts. And there was massive, again, there's been massive strikes across. There was 70 missiles, I believe, right? I think that's what you were saying. There was 70 missiles that were fired, and I think it was over like 400 drones too. So they were doubling up. They were letting, there was a message being sent, because at the end of the day, I think we've talked about this and what Putin's sort of idea is for this conflict coming to an end or coming to a close in some way. Where is he at with this? And obviously, what only thing Russia can really do is continue to put pressure on Ukraine and the West to, at some point go to the table with some real compromises. And that's not happening. I think that the United States delegation and Europe, they all got together and they decided on a peace agreement, all these things are things that Russia just will never accept, because at the end of the day, it's about NATO on the doorstep of Russia to destabilize Russia, and Russia knows that. So you can't allow that. You're already talking about, the Europe is already talking about having troops there, to peacekeeping troops during, this for part of the negotiations, when we know that that's a non-starter. I mean, we already seen that Russia targets, anytime they see that there's one of these clandestine forces, they target them, and they're like, oh yeah, we saw you there. Obviously Russia's not going to go for that. And Ukraine is in a much, much worse situation than they've been. And they've been in a bad situation, or I should say Kyiv, because Kyiv now, like you said, is experiencing a lot of what the other cities and villages have been experiencing, because they've been taking energy from sort of the rural areas to be sure they've been good. But now Russia's even cutting that off. And it kind of goes to show that, again, when you deal with the West, when you get into an unholy alliance with America, they will see it to your ruin, because the Ukraine war is just there to continue, like I said, to destabilize, to ground down Russia's forces, but it hasn't done that. It's almost like your people are dying for nothing. And Putin had an election. I guess it was rigged, right? I guess he rigged the 3-week election. Why can't Zelensky rig his election if it's so easy just to rig them? Because he's not having one. Democracy, right? And we heard Bibi Netanyahu last episode saying now's not the time for elections. The vaunted democracy of the West. I'm going to move to this because I think you were.
I just want to, your point, right? To your point, one of the things that I found interesting was not only were there 80 plus missiles, right? There was almost no drones, and yet almost everything got in, which once again shows you how much all the missile defense has been taken away or destroyed in Ukraine. Almost all of that has been moved to the Middle East theater, which once again points to probably the inevitability of hostilities in that area. The other thing I want to say is Russia has really used this whole Ukrainian situation, especially at least in 2026, as an opportunity to showcase some of its premier weapons. We've already had, a strike from the Orishnik. Now, with the strike that we had yesterday, we had 4 Zircons. Like, that is a Mach 10 missile. That is very fast. It's an air-to-air missile that's normally fired from their naval fleet. So like that's almost no reaction time. If you're firing a Zircon in the Black Sea to Odessa, there's no reaction time. Like even if you potentially had air defense, the Patriot is not a Mach 10 interceptor. Just do the math on that. So I just wanted to touch in on that because this is the first time Russia has used that many Zircons ever in one day. So these are, again, escalations that are important, but also showing their technological prowess as far as their missile attacks go. And it begs the question, what type of collaboration has happened between the Iranians and the Russians? Because if they're in conversation with the missile technology, that again bodes incredibly foreboding for any type of actions that are going to be launched against Iran.
Yeah, and there was this idea that they always do this in the West. They try to spin they always take kindness for weakness. So this was like kind of we were discussing. We were like, why is Vladimir Putin allowing this energy ceasefire or whatever they wanted to call it? But again, it only was a few days, and I think it was sort of maybe an olive branch to Trump, or I don't quite know. But of course, as soon as this happened, the West has to start with propaganda. So this is from an article. I don't know the publication, but I'm going to read this for you. Vladimir Putin theatrically announces a 1-week pause in attacking civilian targets in Ukraine and is duly rewarded with misplaced praise from President Trump. We should be under no illusion Putin is offering to stop his war crimes for just 7 days. This is not the gesture of a confident commander. It is the maneuver of a leader whose army is close to breaking. From the tweet there, the person is saying Western media in a nutshell, Russia does nothing equals Putin weak. Russia does something equals Putin desperate. There's always a way to spin it. And there's always a way that we have to have these conversations about what's happening. And then when Russia's winning, they're like, oh, do you want Russia to win? And we're past the wants and desires and feelings of who's rooting and what all that stuff is irrelevant.
They're talking about objective,
truth,
observable facts. Because even truth is relative, right? Truth, The truth is, I might think I'm the most handsome motherfucker that ever was, and you might also have that as your truth.
Yeah, but the truth is you're second to me, which is still very high.
But facts are observable. And here's a fact that we can observe. Klitschko, who is the mayor of Kyiv, the capital city of Ukraine, has ordered a withdrawal of the people. I don't even know the name of the mayor of Moscow. Shit's pretty good over there. Nothing's happening. Every now and again, a drone comes through. Mostly they get destroyed. Meanwhile, there's 80% power restriction in the capital city of Ukraine. Like, don't tell me that this is an equal back and forth battle, because it tells me you're not actually watching the observable truth. I'm not talking about what CNN says. I'm not talking about what Fox News says. I'm talking about what the freaking mayor of the capital of Ukraine says. He's ordering people to leave. You know, we do this in America, like when a hurricane is coming, like, oh God, everybody need to get the fuck out of New Orleans. I don't know how you're going to do it, but, you know, do it. That's literally where we are in Ukraine right now, except it's the capital city. You know, the mayor is saying, I can't really see to the safety of anyone here. And if you have another place you can be, you should be there. That's not the battle of equals, you know. Kyiv is in a desperate place right now. And yet Zelensky's still traipsing around the world like shit sweet. Like, oh, you know, we about to tell them Russians, and in 72 hours, you know, we're signing these security agreements where if Russia invades again within 72 hours, there will be a response from NATO. And Putin's like, you know, I mean, Russia's like, what the fucking respond now. Bring them in, see what happens. Like, because as you already intimated, that is the strong rumor that continues circulating on the underground about what the Orishnik strike was. A secret base filled with, let's just say, soldiers that weren't Ukrainian that snook across the border to help the Ukrainians and are R.I. motherfucking P. You know, I mean, the Russians have been crystal clear about what they will and what they will not accept in Ukraine. And the Europeans are incapable of resisting the Russian influence. That's just the bottom line. And everyone has said it. You know, Mark Rutte has said, you know, we need the Americans. You know, Trump has said Europe needs us. You know, Secretary of State has said it. I mean, hell, the Secretary of Finance, man, when you got Scott Bessent talking about the Europeans represent weakness, like, so the Europeans can make any kind of guarantee they want to Ukraine. But without the American muscle, they cannot enforce it. And Russia knows that. What that week was really like as we say in America, a coming to Jesus. Like, Zelensky, be smart about this. You see we got you in the crosshairs. You see we could turn the whole lights off in the country at any time. Take a week. Think about what you need. The week goes by, and then what does Russia do? They hit them with the largest missile barrage that they've hit them with since the conflict begun. And they didn't even use any drones. Because, understand this, the reason why everyone thinks the air defense is done so spectacularly in Ukraine is because mostly what happens in a SEAD attack, right, suppression of enemy air defense, is all of the drones are released. They're low flying, they're slow. You know, they get picked up on the radar and you shoot them down, right? And once those are shot down, right, the enemy that fired the drones, they already know where the air force, where the air defense is. So the missiles then just come in and hit the fucking air defense, or they fly right past them because normally by that point, the air defense is saturated. It doesn't even have enough capacity to continue to defend. You see what I'm saying? Like, so by Russia not sending drones, they're straight up saying, we know you ain't even got shit. We know we can do whatever we want right now. That's what they're demonstrating.
There's one last point I wanted to bring up because we've touched on this before, and I think it should be said again. Obviously, the Epstein files continuously being dropped. There's been this attempt by Western media to sort of foist Epstein onto Russia and make it seem like he's a Russian operative instead of sort of an American operative. or a Mossad operative, or whatever you want to do. I'm not saying that I know and I'm fully aware of everything Epstein files and who Jeffrey Epstein was and his connections. I'm not an expert on that. What I am more of an expert on is Kyiv and the aforementioned mayor of Kyiv, Vladimir Klitschko, is human trafficking is a part of his repertoire. We've already spoke about this, and it's one of those places that's a refuge for SOs and people who are connected with pedophilia and those who have been seen or have exhibited behavior of sexual abuse, sexual abusers. Find a home in Israel. That's a place where they like to go. If you look at the amount of sex offenders in Israel, it's all over the country. And this idea that the global South was participating in in the same ways that the West was participating with Jeffrey Epstein is ridiculous. And here's just some proof. It's not the only proof I have. I have more, but we only have a certain amount of time. And I like to provide. So here it is. This is from the Kyiv Post. This is 6 years ago. 6 years ago. Ukraine turned a blind eye to American pedophile working with orphanages. Yeah, it's that crazy. It's that crazy. It would seem cool that anyone dealing with children would have to undergo extensive background checks. However, a convicted U.S. pedophile was given a free hand with orphanages and schools. So, again, just a receipt. There are many. And I think Russia's desire to move away from sort of the way that the West operates. You made the comment earlier about the vampire ball that was talked about by Vladimir Putin. We've had many global South leaders come out and talk about that, including Maduro, Petro in Colombia. Can you speak just a little bit to that in this article and just sort of your thoughts?
So don't forget that Erica Kirk had a nonprofit that worked with children in Ukraine, and she too was barred from the country for, let's say, legal complications related to children, right? Like, this continues to be a theme, but we don't talk a lot about the Epstein situation on this channel because mostly it's salacious, but also it's important to remember always, man, this one person is one person, okay? If you think that because Jeffrey Epstein is dead, which, by the way, there's rumors that he might not even be, these kind of operations are never reliant on one man. No one man could ever be that important and have that many secrets on anybody. This is a systemic issue. And I guarantee you these projects are still carrying on. And this is one of the things I got to say. When I was a baby leftist, mostly we were all conspiracy theorists back then. And it was so frowned upon. But the thing that I want to remind everybody is we live in a society where the government has the right to redact or outright destroy information. So you can't live by the scholarly rules of like, no, we need verification, we need witnesses, we need people that are willing to go on the record. That shit does not always happen, especially when lives are on the line. Like, we're talking about politics, yeah, we should document that. And, it shouldn't just be like, oh, these are my fucking vibes. But when it comes to like shady shit that governments do, I'm so sorry, man. A lot of the stuff there is never going to be hard proof that's going to meet the definition of what constitutes a crime by way of Western justice. And that is not to say that horrible things aren't happening. It's just that you'll never be able to prove them. I mean, all the way back in the 70s when they were talking about the MK Ultra scandal, right? And it went through Congress. They talked about all of these other subdivisions of that program. Project Monarch comes to mind. And for years, everyone's, Project Monarch is It's a conspiracy theory. It's not real. And, it's in that project where they talked about, abducting young people, forcing them into sexual slavery, right? And this is where the concept of even programming triggers came from. Like all of this stuff was talked about in Project Monarch way before these things became popular conversations, right? But because the kind of people that talked about these projects were always made to seem like crazy people to liberals, no one wanted to listen. And now all of these projects that they've talked about for decades are coming to life. And I think that Epstein is a very convenient, if even in all of the inconvenience that Epstein represents, he is a convenient bow to wrap around something that is hella bigger than Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, well said. Again, human trafficking is a huge business, and it exists in so many places in the West. And
Klitschko is reported to be a human trafficker. The mayor of Kyiv, or well, his brother.
yeah, I mean, they've been pretty connected, and we know that they've been connected to the West because there was a lot of conversation about the mayor Klitschko to be the president of Ukraine, and we know this from the infamous tapes with Victoria Nuland. You can go check out at any time the FDEU, all that other stuff. And I've said this before. In many ways, the special military operation in Ukraine is the one of the biggest benefits the global South and the leftist community in the world has right now. It's one of the biggest military victories the global South has had over the West, and it is, you mentioned Iran. It's Russia's victory in Ukraine helps Iran. It helps the Middle East. It helps the global South because it great the West's ability to conduct war, and it are at least showing the global South that could be pushed back against. And Ukraine is, we've been talking about it for a long time. I guess people thought maybe we were joking. Ukraine has lost millions of people. Millions have died and millions have fled and will never return. So instead of destabilizing Russia, of course, the West has destabilized Ukraine, and that destabilization will push out into Moldova and the surrounding region, of course. So yeah, I think we can leave it there.
Yeah. Ukraine was meant to show that Russia is a paper tiger, right? And then the sunken cost fallacy, right? Instead of just admitting quickly, like, oh, fuck, they were much more prepared militarily than we thought they were. Okay, no harm, no foul. Like what happened in Georgia, just step away and everybody acts like what happened didn't happen. No, they went all in. And this is what a gambler does, right? Desperate people keep going all in because sooner or later it has to pay off. And what Russia has done is they've exposed the supply chain weaknesses of NATO and even the United States because they're not able to match Russian military output as far as important things that win wars, things like drone capacity, things like recruitment, things like the ability of missile production, missile tech. All of these artillery production, these are not sexy things. They're not, $5 billion B2s, but those are the fundamentals, right? We were just talking about fundamentals the other day, right? These are the fundamental tools of winning wars in the 21st century. And the West has not proven its capacity to match even the Russians. God forbid we get into a military situation with the Chinese, the largest producers of goods
military
on the planet.
And the ongoing conflict in Iran, which could pop off at any time. There's been a lot of rumors saying that, don't want to because they know Iran's capabilities continue to grow. And like you said, they've been reportedly working with Russia and their military technology. I mean, why wouldn't they? They're already economically, joined through BRICS. So why not? Let's give a shout out to our podcast. We're available everywhere you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you use those, give us a good review, 5 stars. Like, subscribe here on YouTube. Give a shout out to our Patreon members, patreon.com/innercityleft. Fables, foibles, other sins, as you see behind me, available in the description. Amoja's book of poetry. We also artists. We drop music all the time. We got stuff on the way. Me, TMK, everywhere you find music. Lil Tanky, everywhere you find music. Tanky, thoughts? What do we miss? Final statements, things.
I say this often, but it's actually super appropriate because it's cold as hell. Stay frosty, everyone.
Head on a swivel. It ain't time anymore. For Amoja, Lil Tanky, Summer, I'm me, TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.